I rejected my cheating ex's apology. She crashed my wedding to get revenge. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. The worst day of my life didn't begin with chaos. It started with sunlight spilling across a crisp, white shirt and the shaky, nervous laughter of a man about to say, "I do." My best friend, Matt, kept fidgeting with my tie, mumbling jokes to break my tension. My parents hovered, fussing and snapping photos I'd never want to see again. In the background, I could hear music and distant voices. Everything felt surreal, like I was on a film set, waiting for the cue to walk on. And then she walked in. No warning, no invitation. Just my ex, Ava, in a red dress so bright it sucked the oxygen from the room. All conversation died. My fiancée, Lila, looked up from her bouquet, confusion flickering across her face. I felt my stomach plummet, my past and future colliding in one ugly, public car crash. Ava didn't flinch. She scanned the crowd, smiled that too sweet smile, and locked eyes with me. Her presence alone was enough to crack the fragile shell of joy around me. But what happened next truly shattered it. She marched up the aisle, heels clicking, and before anyone could react, she announced, "I have something to say to the groom." My mother gasped. Matt tried to intercept her, but she shrugged him off. Lila stared at me. No, through me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I felt naked, exposed, like every secret I'd tried to bury was about to crawl into the light. That's when Ava turned to the guests and said, "Before you marry him, you should know what he's hiding and what he did to me." The crowd erupted. Lila's face went pale. My father looked like he might faint. Ava grinned, triumphant, as if she'd rehearsed this scene in her head 1,000 times. But no one, not even Ava, could have predicted what would come next. Because this story wasn't just about revenge. It was about secrets, obsession, and a line I never thought I'd have to cross. And as her words echoed through the room, I knew my wedding day was only the beginning of the real disaster. Ava's words hung in the air, poisonous and impossible to ignore. Guests murmured, phones rose, and I saw my fiancé's lips trembling. "What is this, Jake?" she whispered, her voice so small I almost missed it. My pulse hammered in my ears. I wanted to run, to scream, to beg for a rewind, anything but this. But Ava thrived on attention. She let the tension build, savoring every terrified glance cast in my direction. But let's rewind. Let me tell you what brought me here, sweating in a suit as my life unraveled in front of my friends, my family, and the woman I loved. Ava and I met in college, a whirlwind romance that felt too intense, too consuming from the start. She was brilliant, charming, unpredictable, the kind of person you can't stop watching. And she watched me with the same hunger. At first, it was intoxicating. Then it got suffocating. There were fights about nothing, then fights about everything. But I never saw it coming. Not the first time, not the last. The betrayal happened in the most cliché way possible. I came home early, a bouquet in hand, some silly peace offering after our latest fight. I heard voices, laughter that wasn't meant for me. When I saw her on the couch with someone else, my whole world shrank to a pinpoint of pain and disbelief. I left. I didn't even yell. I just shut down. Days later, Ava showed up at my door sobbing, begging, promising she'd change. She wrote letters, sent flowers, left endless voicemails. She said she'd do anything for my forgiveness. But my heart was a locked vault. I said no. And when she realized she couldn't worm her way back in, the sweetness curdled into something sour and hard. She showed up at my work, left gifts with mutual friends, even tried to befriend my mother. I blocked her everywhere. I moved on, or tried to. I met Lila, whose warmth was a balm after Ava's storms. With Lila, love was simple, healing, safe. But Ava wasn't finished with me. I'd underestimated how deep her need for closure, or revenge, really ran. That's how, years after her apology, she was standing in the aisle at my wedding, determined to set my world on fire. And as her gaze locked with mine, I realized she wasn't alone. In the back, I spotted a familiar face, a mutual friend who'd always seemed to take Ava's side. My gut twisted. This wasn't going to end with a single outburst. It was just beginning. The silence after Ava's accusation was electric. My parents looked at me, their faith in me flickering. Lila's knuckles whitened around her bouquet. The wedding planner, eyes wide, mouthed a frantic, "Do something." But I was frozen, heart pounding, mind racing through years of memories and regrets. Ava let the tension build. "You never told her about us, did you?" she sneered. But her eyes glittered, like she wanted to see me break. "About what you did after you found out about me and Nate." Nate. The name was a gut punch. My former best friend, the man she'd cheated with, and the only person I'd cut from my life as quickly as Ava. My vision blurred with anger. Whispers slithered through the crowd. Wasn't that his college girlfriend? Did he cheat too? Is this a prank? My head swam. I glanced at Lila, who searched my face for answers I wasn't ready to give. I wanted to say something, anything, but Ava was just getting started. She looked straight at Lila. "You deserve to know what kind of man you're marrying. He cut me out, yes, but he also sent messages. Angry, bitter things. He called me names, made threats. I tried to apologize. He ignored me, blocked me, humiliated me in front of everyone. Does that sound like someone you want to marry?" I felt like a bug under a microscope. Lila blinked away tears, and her mother rose, voice trembling. "Maybe we should stop this." "Jake, what is going on?" The old hurt and humiliation flared up inside me. I wanted to shout the truth about Ava's obsession, her manipulation, the way she twisted every goodbye into fresh drama. But how could I explain that without sounding just as unstable? How could I admit that her betrayal still haunted me? The shame clung to my skin. In the back, that mutual friend, a guy named Eric, had his phone out, filming. Suddenly, I knew this wasn't just revenge. This was a show. Ava wanted to ruin me in every way, publicly, permanently. She was dragging my worst memories into the light, and I didn't know if I had the strength to stop her. And then, as I tried to speak, Ava stepped even closer, her voice dropping so only I could hear. "You could have forgiven me. You chose this." I barely noticed the gasps as the doors burst open again. Another guest, late, my old college roommate, red-faced and breathless. He shouted, "Jake, don't let her do this. You need to tell the truth now." For a second, nobody moved. My old roommate, Ryan, was panting in the doorway, sweat beading his brow, tucks crooked, like he'd run through a storm to get here. Everyone's eyes snapped to him, and for the briefest moment, hope flickered in my chest. Maybe someone finally had my back. Ava rolled her eyes. "Oh, here comes the cavalry. Don't act like you know what happened, Ryan." Her voice was brittle, but there was a crack in her confidence. Ryan didn't flinch. "I know exactly what you're doing, Ava. You're not here for closure. You're here to ruin his life because he finally stood up to you." He looked at me, then at Lila, and said quietly, "You need to tell them everything, or she'll just keep twisting it." My mouth felt full of sand. Lila's eyes pleaded for honesty, even if it hurt. I took a breath and forced myself to speak. Ava and I were a mess. She cheated, yes, but it didn't end there. After I left, she kept showing up, everywhere. My job, my apartment, my family's house. I tried to move on, but she made it impossible. Ava cut in, her voice syrupy and mocking. "You make it sound so dramatic. I just wanted you to see how sorry I was. But you made it clear, publicly, that I wasn't welcome in your life." "That's not all," Ryan said, voice rising. She sent him hundreds of messages, sometimes from fake accounts. When he blocked her, she started harassing his friends, me, too. I have the screenshots. He held up his phone for the room to see. Ava's face twisted, but she didn't back down. And what about Jake's temper? He was cruel. He said things that cut deep. He tried to make me feel worthless. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the pain behind her fury. But the sympathy in the room was gone. People shifted uncomfortably, whispering. Lila finally spoke, voice trembling but strong. "Jake, is it true? Did you threaten her? Did you do those things?" The question hung in the air, a test, a plea, a last chance for honesty. I nodded, throat tight. I said things I regret. I was angry. I wanted her gone. But I never lied about what she did. I just wanted to move on. Ava's eyes flashed. And yet, here we are. The silence after those words was different. Heavier. For the first time, I saw doubt flicker in her eyes, like she realized the control was slipping. That's when Eric stepped forward, phone still recording, and said, "Ava, maybe you should tell them what you did last week, before the wedding." Ava's head snapped toward Eric, her glare icy. "What are you talking about?" she spat, voice teetering between rage and panic. Eric looked nervous, glancing at me for reassurance, but then squared his shoulders and faced the crowd. Ava called me a week ago. She wanted my help to sabotage this wedding. Gasps rippled through the room. Lila's mother gripped the pew in front of her. My father finally found his voice. Sabotage? What did you do? Eric's hands shook as he unlocked his phone. She wanted me to hack Jake's email, leak fake conversations, anything to make him look bad. She sent me screenshots, scripts she wanted me to use, proof she'd been planning this. He turned the phone toward Lila, who recoiled but forced herself to look. Ava's face turned an ugly shade of red. He's lying. He always hated me. He's just trying to cover for Jake. But the cracks in her confidence were showing now. Her voice was less sure, more desperate. You really believe him over me? Ryan stepped in, backing Eric up. He showed me the texts, Ava. You asked him to make a scene today. You promised him money, even said you'd lie about him if he didn't help. Ava's lip trembled. For a second, she almost looked small, a girl cornered and lashing out. I just wanted him to know how much he hurt me. I wanted him to feel something. Lila, clutching her bouquet so hard the flowers bent, turned to me. Why didn't you tell me she was this obsessed? I swallowed. I was scared. I didn't want you dragged into this. I thought if I ignored her, she'd go away. I was wrong. The guests started murmuring, some pulling out their phones, recording, texting, already spreading the story. I watched my wedding day crumble, love poisoned by old wounds, trust eroded by secrets. But then Ryan walked over, standing at my side, defiant. You don't have to run from her anymore. Tell the truth, Jake. All of it. You owe Lila that. I took a shaky breath, heart pounding as I looked at my fiancée. Lila, I'm sorry. There's more I need to say. About everything. Ava's eyes narrowed. If you do, you'll regret it. Her threat hung between us, one last desperate attempt to keep her secrets safe. But for the first time, I felt something shift. The truth was coming out, no matter how ugly. And Ava wasn't in control anymore. My hands were shaking. For so long I tried to hide all the ugliness. Out of shame, fear, and the desperate hope that the past would stay buried if I just never spoke it aloud. But Ava's threat landed differently this time. I realized I was done living under her shadow. I took Lila's hand, my voice barely above a whisper. After Ava and I ended, I wasn't myself. I lashed out. At her, at friends, even at strangers online. I said things in anger I'll always regret. But the truth is, I was broken. When she wouldn't let go, I started to lose myself. I became paranoid, convinced she was everywhere. I got therapy, but I never really talked about it with anyone. I thought if I could just start over with you, Lila, it would be enough. Lila's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let go. She nodded for me to go on. Around us, the room was dead silent. No one dared move, like the wrong gesture would snap the tension. I looked at Ava. You hurt me, Ava, but I hurt you back, in words, in silence, in how I treated people who try to stay neutral. Maybe I even hurt myself the most, because I didn't believe I deserved something better. Ava shook her head, mouth twisting with anger and grief. You think this makes you the victim? You destroyed me. I had to fight for everything, my reputation, my sanity, while you just got to walk away and reinvent yourself. Eric stepped forward, calm but stern. Ava, no one here is perfect, but you planned to ruin his wedding. You wanted everyone to hurt as much as you did. Ryan put a hand on my shoulder. We all screwed up, but dragging everyone through this circus, how does that help? Ava wiped her eyes, mascara streaking. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I just wanted someone to feel how I felt. Unloved, left behind, erased. Lila's voice cut through the noise, soft but unbreakable. You could have moved on, Ava. You could have let us go. A hush settled over the guests. I felt exposed, but also lighter, the weight of years of secrets slipping away. I met Lila's gaze, searching for forgiveness, for hope. But then a phone buzzed. Eric's eyes widened at his screen. He turned pale and said, Jake, you need to see this. She wasn't working alone. Eric's words rang out, turning every head. For a split second, the tension in the room shifted off Ava and onto him. What do you mean? I asked, voice rough. He handed me his phone, the screen glowing with a series of frantic texts, anonymous numbers, screenshots, even an email chain. As I scrolled, my blood ran cold. There were messages between Ava and my cousin, Jamie. Jamie, The cousin who'd always been supportive, who helped plan the wedding, who was supposed to be my best man. My stomach dropped as I pieced together what I was seeing. Jamie feeding Ava inside information, timelines, guest lists, seating charts, even my bachelor party plans. Lila read over my shoulder, her face draining of color. "Why would Jamie do this?" she whispered. Eric cleared his throat, face apologetic. I recognized his number. He reached out to me a few days ago, fishing for details about security. At the time, I thought he was just anxious, but now I realize he was stalling, maybe even making sure Ava could get in. Ava's composure fractured. I didn't force Jamie to do anything. He volunteered. Said he was tired of Jake pretending to be perfect, tired of being left out. Her words sounded defensive, desperate. I felt like the floor was tilting beneath me. My family. My own blood. The betrayal twisted deeper than anything Ava had ever done alone. I remembered all the times Jamie questioned my decisions, his snide comments about Lila, his backhanded jokes. I'd brushed them off as jealousy, never suspecting he'd go this far. "Jamie, are you here?" I called, voice shaking. For a moment, only silence answered. Then, from the back row, Jamie stood up, hands in his pockets, a look of defiant shame on his face. "I didn't want it to go this far," he said, but his eyes flicked toward Ava, anger and regret warring inside him. "But you never let me in, Jake." "Not really. I was always just the tag-along. Maybe I wanted you to feel left out for once." A ripple of disbelief passed through the guests. Lila stepped away from me, her trust clearly shaken. My mother looked devastated, burying her face in her hands. I took a breath, fighting the urge to scream. "You could have talked to me, Jamie. About anything. But you chose this?" He shrugged, defeated. Maybe I just wanted to matter. I felt the last of my illusions crumble. The wedding was well and truly in ruins. But I wasn't going to let them have the last word. I stepped forward, voice steady despite everything. "If you two wanted a spectacle, you got one. But I won't be ashamed for surviving what you put me through." Jamie's eyes darted away. Ava's face hardened again. But as the crowd waited, a new voice spoke up from the aisle. Lila's father, face grim. "Enough secrets. If there's more to come out, let's have it. Now." And just like that, the next layer of the nightmare was about to begin. The silence that followed was suffocating. My heart pounded so loudly it felt like the whole room could hear. Jamie stared at the floor, refusing to meet anyone's eyes, while Ava crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. Lila's father, stern and commanding, looked directly at me. "Is there anything else we should know, Jake? Anyone else involved?" I shook my head, honestly unsure. "Not that I know of," I managed, voice cracking. "But at this point, I wouldn't be surprised by anything." Then Jamie spoke, quietly at first, but gaining strength. "There's something else," he said, and my stomach twisted again. "It wasn't just me and Ava. Your Aunt Marissa, she was the one who told Ava about the venue. She's never forgiven you for what happened with Uncle Dan." A fresh wave of shock swept through the guests. Aunt Marissa, the family matriarch, always polite and distant, now sat rigid, lips pressed in a thin line. She looked everywhere but at me. Memories rushed in, old arguments, family rifts, whispered resentments. The puzzle pieces finally fit. The odd questions about our wedding, the sudden interest in details she never cared about before. Ava jumped in, seizing the moment. "And Eric? He was supposed to stop you from inviting me. He promised he'd talk you out of it, but he didn't. Maybe he's not as loyal as you think." Eric flinched. "I tried, Jake. I swear I did. I just didn't think she'd actually go through with it." My chest tightened, humiliation and anger flooding me. Lila's face was pale, her eyes wide with betrayal, not just by me, but by everyone she'd welcomed into her life. I wanted to reach for her, to explain, but she stepped back, walls going up. Then, Aunt Marissa finally spoke, her voice icy and measured. "I thought Jake needed a lesson in humility. The family always covers for him, always lets him off easy. Maybe now he'll understand consequences." A ripple of outrage passed through the crowd. My father shook his head, and my mother's tears spilled over. I felt a sudden, burning clarity. This wasn't just about Ava's obsession or Jamie's jealousy. It was about every simmering grudge, every secret kept behind polite smiles. I looked at Lila, willing her to see the truth. I wasn't perfect, but I never wanted any of this. The weight of the room pressed in on me, and for the first time, I wondered if my future was salvageable at all. But even as everything fell apart, I realized something. I was still standing, bruised, bleeding, but unbroken. And I wouldn't let this be the end. No one seemed to know what to do next. The guests, most of them strangers to the wounds beneath our family's surface, looked for exits, shifting uncomfortably as if their presence here was a violation. I watched Lila, her eyes darting from face to face, searching for safety and finding none. Ava tried one last time to seize control. This isn't just about me. It's about the truth. Jake, you never took responsibility for the damage you left behind. Maybe now you finally will. Her voice echoed through the room, but it sounded tired now, almost hollow. Jamie stepped away from her, voice breaking. I just wanted you to notice me, Jake. Not like this. Not with everyone watching. I felt a pang, of guilt, of regret, of exhaustion. What was left to say to someone who weaponized your trust? Aunt Marissa rose, gathering her purse like she was leaving a bad movie. I've done my part, she muttered. Let the pieces fall where they may. Lila finally spoke, her voice so soft I almost missed it. All I ever wanted was honesty. You should have told me everything from the start, Jake. We could have faced it together. My throat clenched. I was afraid, Lila. I didn't want to lose you. I thought I could handle it on my own, that it would protect you. She shook her head, eyes glistening. You can't protect someone with secrets. You just make them feel alone. Ryan and Eric stood by my side, silent but supportive. In the swirling mess, they were the few who hadn't turned away. I looked at my parents, shaken but present, eyes full of worry. Ava started toward the door, pausing at the aisle. Maybe you'll forgive me someday, Jake. Or maybe you'll just forget. Either way, I hope you finally let go. She disappeared, the last ripple of drama fading behind her. I turned to Lila, desperation in my voice. Is there a way back from this? She hesitated, then said quietly, only if we build something new. No more lies. A tentative hope flickered. Maybe the wedding was over, but something honest could be born from the ashes. The crowd began to file out, whispers trailing, but I stayed rooted, grateful that, at last, the storm had passed. But just as I exhaled, the church doors banged open one final time. A police officer entered, scanning the room and calling my name. Jake, I need to speak with you. It's about what happened here today. And the saga, it seemed, was not quite finished. For a heartbeat, I thought I might faint. The weight of eyes, the aftermath, the utter exhaustion. Now this. The officer's tone was firm but not unfriendly, as if he'd seen 100 messy weddings before. Mr. Jacob Taylor? I nodded, unable to muster a voice. He glanced at the crowd, then motioned me aside. We've received multiple reports about disturbances, possible harassment, and claims of sabotage involving several guests. I need you to clarify a few things, privately, if possible. Lila squeezed my hand once before letting go, her face unreadable. I stepped away from my family, from the wreckage of what was meant to be my happiest day. The officer and I slipped into a small vestry off the main hall, its stained glass windows throwing fractured light across the dust. He opened a notepad. Can you confirm? Did you at any point feel threatened or harassed by Ava or anyone else here today? I hesitated, the memories raw and immediate. Yes, Ava's been stalking me for years. My cousin Jamie, my aunt. It wasn't just today. They've been working behind my back for months. He scribbled notes. We'll need your statements, and those of your friends. The church's cameras may have recorded everything. The realization struck, this chaos, my humiliation, now evidence, immortalized on video. The officer's next words caught me off guard. There are also claims of threats made by you, messages, angry voicemails. Ava mentioned feeling unsafe. Shame and defensiveness warred in my chest. I said things I regret, but I never hurt her. I was just desperate to get her out of my life. He nodded. It's complicated, isn't it? He sighed. Messy breakups, old wounds. They turn people into strangers. I rubbed my temples. I just want to move on. To stop looking over my shoulder. He stood, softer now. We'll do what we can, but you'll have to talk to a lawyer. And maybe, talk to her, one last time, for closure. Safely, with us present. My heart twisted. The thought of facing Ava again, civilly, on record, made my skin crawl. But maybe it was the only way to finally cut the cord. When I re-emerged, most of the guests had gone. My parents waited in anxious silence. Lila stood alone by the altar, her back straight but her posture tired. As I approached, she didn't move. "Jake," she said, voice steady. "I can't marry you today. But maybe, someday, when we're ready, when the past isn't chasing us." Pain cut deep, but I understood. I nodded. "No more lies." She squeezed my hand. "We'll see." And in that moment, broken, uncertain, but still alive, I finally let myself hope that this wasn't the end. Just a new, brutally honest beginning. The church emptied faster than I could process what had happened. When I finally stepped outside, the world was still there. Cars moving, birds chirping, people unaware that a love story had detonated in the sanctuary behind me. Ryan and Eric waited by the steps, their faces a blend of worry and loyalty. "You good?" Ryan asked, though the question was a joke. No one could be good after that. I shook my head. "Not even close. But I'm here. Thanks for not bailing." Eric put a hand on my shoulder. "You survived. That's something. Come on, let's get out of here. Fresh air and coffee, my treat." As we walked, I felt stripped bare. No more performance, no more smiling through pain. The adrenaline gave way to exhaustion, the ache of everything I'd lost, and the terrifying emptiness of starting over. We found a quiet corner at a coffee shop. The smallness of the space felt safe after the exposed chaos of the church. Ryan pulled out his phone. "People are already talking about it online. Some guests posted videos. It's going to go viral, man." I let out a humorless laugh. "Great. My heartbreak is everyone's entertainment." Eric shook his head. "Don't let it define you. You told the truth, Jake. That's rare." I stared into my coffee, wondering what truth even meant anymore. The versions of myself, before Ava, after her, the would-be groom, the reluctant confessor, blurred together. "Maybe honesty just hurts more than lies," I muttered. We sat in silence, the three of us picking over the ruins of the day. Eventually, my phone buzzed. A message from Lila. "Take care of yourself. I need time, but I'm not giving up on us yet." Relief, sharper than I expected, cut through the fog. There was still hope. Maybe not for a perfect ending, but for something real, earned through pain and hard choices. A few hours later, my parents called. My father's voice was rough. "Come home, son. You don't have to go through this alone." For the first time in a long time, I didn't hesitate. That night, alone in my old room, I wrote letters to Lila, to Ava, to Jamie, to myself. I spilled the truths I'd never dared say aloud. I realized that pain could be a beginning as well as an ending. Tomorrow, I'd face whatever came next: police interviews, gossip, more apologies. But tonight, I allowed myself to mourn. And for the first time, I began to believe that forgiveness, real, stubborn, imperfect, might be possible, even if I had to start with myself. The next morning, the world felt both painfully familiar and completely alien. Sunlight streamed through my childhood window, the walls still covered in posters from a boy who thought he understood loyalty. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ava's face, hurt and vindictive. Jamie's haunted, angry. Lila, stoic and heartbroken. My phone buzzed with messages, most unread, a digital minefield of sympathy, judgment, and curiosity. Mid-morning, my parents sat with me at the kitchen table. My mother squeezed my hand. "We love you, Jake. Mistakes don't change that. But it's time to be honest. With us, with yourself, with everyone." For the first time, I let myself cry. Not the angry, frustrated tears I'd bottled up for years, but the slow, cleansing kind that leave you raw but lighter. Ryan and Eric showed up around noon, both armed with coffee and awkward humor. "Ready to face your adoring public?" Eric grinned, trying to lift the mood. I managed a weak smile. "I guess it's time." Together, we drove to the police station, the morning's peace left behind like a dream. The interview was long and humbling. I explained everything: Ava's harassment, Jamie's betrayal, my own angry messages. The officer listened, patient but unsparing. "You're not a victim or a villain, Mr. Taylor. Just someone caught in a mess." I nodded, feeling strangely grateful for the honesty. When we left, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jamie. "Can we talk? I owe you more than an apology." I agreed to meet him at the park near our grandmother's house, a place where we'd once been close. Jamie was already there, slouched on a bench, looking years older. He stood as I approached. "Jake, I'm sorry. I let jealousy eat at me. I wanted your life, your friends. But I see now that I never understood your pain. His words were rough, but real. I missed you, man. I just wish you'd talk to me, not sabotaged me. My voice cracked with old pain. We sat in silence, letting regret and forgiveness settle between us. There were no easy fixes, but something in both of us wanted to try. Before leaving, Jamie handed me a letter, one for Lila, one for my parents, and one for me. Say what you need to say, he said, even if it takes years. As I walked away, I felt the burden shift. Apologies wouldn't fix everything, but maybe, just maybe, they could open the door to something better. Back at home, I sat with Jamie's letters in my hands, the weight of them almost physical. My parents watched from the living room, hesitant but hopeful, as if sensing the delicate moment of truth that was about to unfold. I opened the one addressed to Lila first, reading Jamie's words aloud in the privacy of my empty room. His handwriting was messy, but his remorse was clear: apologies, explanations, and an earnest plea for her forgiveness, not just for his part in the chaos, but for the pain it had caused her by proxy. For my parents, Jamie wrote about childhood slights, jealousy, and feeling invisible, a confession that seemed almost childlike in its honesty. You always loved Jake more, he wrote. I know it wasn't true, but it felt that way. I'm sorry for what I became to get attention. Tears blurred my vision, and I realized how long resentment had grown in the shadows of silence. Finally, I opened my letter. Jamie wrote, Jake, I wanted to punish you for being happy. I never saw what it cost you. I'm sorry I added to your pain instead of easing it. If you can forgive me, maybe we can try to be family again. I set the letter down, heart pounding, the anger I'd carried for so long finally softening into something bittersweet. Later, I called Lila, voice trembling. There's a letter for you from Jamie. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I want you to have it. She was silent for a long time. Thank you for telling me. I'm still hurt, Jake. I need space, but I don't want to close the door forever. I'll wait as long as you need, I replied. No more secrets. Ryan and Eric visited again that evening. We sat outside, letting the early summer air cool the heat of old wounds. What now? Ryan asked, tossing a pebble into the yard. I start over, I said. No more pretending I have it together. No more letting fear dictate my life. Eric nodded. People will talk, but the ones who matter already know your truth. That night, for the first time in ages, I slept without nightmares. The next morning, I wrote my own letter to Ava. I wished her healing, asked for no more contact, and said goodbye. I sent it, knowing I might never hear back. The story wasn't over, not by a long shot. Rebuilding trust, with my family, with Lila, with myself, would take time. But as the sun rose and light poured into my room, I realized I had survived the fire. I could start building, brick by honest brick, a life worth living. The weeks that followed were slow and awkward, every day a test of patience and humility. The world didn't pause for my healing. Work emails piled up, distant relatives called with nosy concerns, and every so often, someone in town would offer a sympathetic look or ask, "Are you okay?" In that way that means they already knew I wasn't. Lila and I stayed apart. We texted sometimes, short, careful messages, nothing like the flurries of excitement we used to share. I missed her every day, but I respected her space, sending only what she needed, the truth, when she wanted it, and nothing more. Jamie, for his part, began to repair things in his own clumsy, stubborn way. He started therapy, met with my parents to apologize, and even sent an email to our extended family, owning up to his part in the wedding disaster. It didn't fix everything, but it cracked open a door. We met for coffee, just the two of us, no drama, no accusations, just brothers trying to figure out if we could ever trust each other again. For the first time in years, I felt the old closeness return, tentatively and quietly. Ava never replied to my letter, but I saw online that she'd moved away. Her social media went dark, then reappeared under a new name. In a strange way, her absence was the final gift. The haunting was over, replaced by the silence of true endings. Eric and Ryan kept me anchored. We started a new tradition, Friday night takeout and dumb movies. The laughter felt different now, sharper, less forced, rooted in gratitude. Life's short, Ryan said one night. You can't let other people's chaos drown your joy forever. I took his words to heart. Slowly, I found new routines. Early morning runs, volunteering at a community kitchen, picking up old hobbies I'd abandoned in the whirlwind of drama and secrets. Every small act of normalcy felt like rebellion against the mess my life had become. One evening, my phone buzzed, a message from Lila. "Can we meet?" No promises. Just coffee. My heart nearly stopped. I agreed, nerves jangling as I dressed for something so much simpler and so much more important than a wedding. At the cafe, she looked tired but strong. "I want to talk," she said. "I want to see if we can find each other again, not as we were, but as who we are now." In that moment, I realized that true healing wasn't about forgetting the pain or erasing the past. It was about facing forward, step by uncertain step, and allowing hope to return. And as we sat there, talking late into the night, I finally felt the first traces of peace, earned, scarred, and real. That evening with Lila was less like a reunion and more like meeting an old friend for the first time. We talked quietly, honestly. No more performance, no more guarding our bruised hearts. She asked about the aftermath, the letters, the fallout with Jamie, my own journey with therapy. I told her everything, even the things that made me look weak or foolish. For the first time, I felt no need to be perfect. Lila listened. Sometimes she reached across the table, her hand hovering over mine, and sometimes she pulled back, unsure. I told her I loved her, not in the desperate, clinging way I once did, but gently, accepting that she could say no. When she finally smiled, it wasn't the smile of our old life, but something deeper, sadder, wiser. "I don't know what comes next, Jake," she said. "Maybe we start slow, or maybe we just keep talking. But you have to promise, no more secrets, even the ugly ones." "I promise," I said. I learned the hard way that secrets never protect anyone. We walked home under the streetlights, both changed by the storm that crashed through our lives. She squeezed my hand, and I knew it wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It was possibility. In the following months, my world rebuilt itself, not with grand gestures, but with tiny, stubborn acts of hope. I reconnected with family, even Aunt Marissa, her pride thawed by Jamie's relentless apologies and my willingness to listen. Jamie and I took up old hobbies together, basketball, hiking, the kind of things that had nothing to do with rivalry or resentment. The pain between us didn't disappear, but it lost its sharpest edge. Ava's story faded into the past. Her silence was a relief, a space for both of us to breathe. Sometimes, when I thought of her, it was with pity and a distant wish for her peace. The wedding that never was became a story, then a lesson. My parents joked about throwing a do-over someday, but for now, Lila and I were content with shared coffees, long walks, honest conversations. Our future wasn't guaranteed, but it was real. And if anyone asked what I'd learned from the chaos, I'd say this: the hardest things to face, betrayal, loss, even your own mistakes, are the ones that teach you how strong you can become. You find out who truly stands by you, and you discover the courage to try again. So here's my advice, for anyone with a heart still bruised by the past: don't let shame or fear write your story. The pain is real, but so is the hope that comes after. Trust yourself to survive it. And when the world explodes, don't run, face forward. There's a new beginning waiting, one honest step at a time.